Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Intro to Buddhism and Meditation class. My name is Alex. It is wonderful to be here with you today. 2 days this week. Amazing. I am subbing for Jeff today, and it's wonderful to be here with you guys. So as I like to say in a lot of my online classes, I love you all. I do. And we're going to have a good time today. So it's really interesting. I just got the notice really recently that I was going to be doing this class in place of Jeff. So I have no idea what I'm going to do. So it's going to be fun for both of us, for all of us, I should say. Okay. So at first, let's join our palms together at our hearts, please. I go for refuge to the Buddha. I go for refuge to the Dharma. I go for refuge to the Sangha. I go for refuge to the Buddha. I go for refuge to the Dharma. I go for refuge to the Sangha. I go for refuge to the Buddha. I go for refuge to the Dharma. I go for refuge to the Sangha. That was loud. So if you're new here to the Dharma Bum Temple online class, or if you're new just to this class, if you could just say hi and type it into the little chat box. I'd like to know who's here who might be new. And if you're not new, just say I'm not new, but I just want to say hi. Right, that's okay too. So usually the format of this class kind of follows the format of most of our classes here, whether it's online or whether it's in person. We'll have this short introduction, and then we'll have a meditation, and then we'll have a discussion, question and answers. You know, sometimes there's something I want to talk about or Jeff wants to talk about, and sometimes not. We like to take questions from you. This is a beginner class, right? So obviously you have some questions. At least I hope you would have some questions. This is a practice where curiosity is paramount. If you're not curious, you won't go very far here. But if you are curious, if you're curious in ways to be more engaged with yourself and your community, curious about how you can reduce your own suffering, which I know all of you are, you'll do pretty well here, especially if you act on that curiosity. I was incredibly curious, very curious, and I pored over literature and all of this, type of Buddhist information, and got a lot of things wrong. I still get a lot of things wrong, but that's the fun part, though. I'm still just as curious as I was before. My curiosity has gone into a different kind of part of my practice, but it's still curiosity nonetheless. So if you have a question, you can type it into the chat box. We'll get to it after the meditation. If you don't know what question to ask, then what you can do is you can ask yourself just before we start to meditate, I wonder what it is I might want to ask and want some information on. And then after the meditation, ask yourself the same question. Don't think about it. Don't meditate on it. Just forget about it. Just forget about it. All right. And then after the meditation, you can ask yourself again, I wonder what I can ask. And then hopefully something will pop up. Type it in. Be ready. So the meditation, the meditation I normally lead on Wednesdays is a loving kindness meditation. And so we're not going to do that today. That'll be tomorrow, although I can do it today. We'll do something different. We'll do a mindfulness meditation. And this is a pretty standard kind of mindfulness meditation, a kind of condensed one, because if you really want to do with the mindfulness meditation, it would actually takes a while. There's a lot of instructions that goes into that. All right. So before we start, let's talk about our seated position, because we really need to get in a good seated position, a nice and comfortable and sustainable position, so we're not likely to move around too much. And that really keeping our body steady helps keep our mind steady. Right? And that's what we want as much as possible. We want a steady mind. So let's kind of get into the position where we can keep our body steady. So if you're seated on a cushion, you just want to make sure that you're seated on the forward third of the cushion so that your hips are higher than your legs, and you're making that you have that cross-legged position, and so your body is like in this kind of tripod, right? It's nice and sturdy and nice and steady. Your feet could be kind of one foot in front of the other, or just kind of overlapping. Although if they're overlapping, your feet might fall asleep. That's okay, you can just move them. If you're seated on a chair like me, you just want to make sure that you're seated nice and flat. Your back, you're not like against the back of the chair like that. And your feet are just a few inches apart. And your feet are flat on the floor as well, I should say. Your hands can be anywhere that's comfortable. So I put them in my lap, or I put them in my lap, or I put them on my legs. And sometimes I alternate. So I just put them wherever is comfortable. Right? If you remember anything, just remember to keep your back straight. So I like to make my back super duper straight. Super straight, just like this, and just kind of relax. So my core is engaged still somewhat, but my shoulders have dropped, right? And so the trunk of my body is really steady. All right, head is nice and straight, maybe even tucking the chin under just a little bit, extending the spine. The tongue is on the roof of your mouth, with the back of the front teeth, with the front of the tongue touching against the back of the front teeth. And that usually prevents a lot of saliva from forming. And then, the eyes. The eyes is it's easier if we just close the eyes, but you could leave the eyes open as long as they're not really focused on anything. Or you can half close your eyes, just like you see in a lot of the Buddhist statuary and a lot of the tankas, a lot of the paintings. Focusing maybe 45 degrees down past your nose in this kind of soft, unfocused gaze. That's also really good. So just find a seated position that's comfortable, and place the rest of your body somewhere that's really comfortable. Because what we're trying to do in meditation, this kind of background idea that we're trying to foster, is this idea of no struggle. We struggle so much in our daily lives with our jobs and relationships and family and all sorts of different things. And the tendency is to bring that struggle into meditation. And so in this meditation, we want to not bring that in there with us, and we want to foster this attitude of no struggle. So we want to sit as still as possible, but we don't want to be a masochist about it. So if you have to move, then move. Slow, short movements are best. And if you really get frustrated, or you can't stay with the breath, or your seated position is very uncomfortable, it's okay just to open your eyes, stretch, stand up, do whatever it is you have to do, and just sit back down. That's perfectly acceptable. All right. So no struggle. We don't want to struggle with our posture. We don't want to struggle with anything else in meditation. All right. The rest of the instructions I'll give you while I guide the meditation. All right. So allow your eyes to close. And making sure you have that nice and comfortable and sustainable position so you're not likely to move around too much. Making sure we foster this idea of no struggle. Not struggling with our seated position, or not struggling with the breath, not struggling with all the things we struggle with during our daily life. And when we sit like a Buddha. It doesn't matter whether you're sitting in a chair or on the edge of your bed or on a cushion or you're laying down on the floor. You can imagine yourself sitting underneath the Bodhi tree of enlightenment just like the Buddha did when he was striving for a final release, for the end of suffering. And we can strive for that too. So just pay gentle attention to the breath. Focusing your breath at the base of the nostrils, feeling the air go in and out as you breathe. Or focusing on the belly or the chest, feeling its expansion and contraction as you breathe. Just taking a deep breath all the way in and all the way out. Not forcing the breath, letting it be quite easy and quite natural. At least just at first. We'll work with the breath in just a minute. But for now, nice and easy and slow and gentle. We pay attention to the breath. And it's our only focus. So just for the next few minutes, we'll just get connected with the breath. Now if we can just shift our focus just a little bit, and you're still going to have about 25% of your attention on the breath, making sure you're still anchored to the present. We're going to do a body scan and do some mindfulness of the body. Mindfulness of the body is paramount in this practice. As the Buddha said, you could become enlightened just from focusing on this part of the practice. Mindful of what the body is doing in every moment. And to do a body scan, we'll just start from the bottom of the feet and go all the way up to the top of the head and back down again. And just noticing what's there without judgment or evaluation. And so we can start with the bottom of our feet and we can say to ourselves, pressure or heat or tingling or whatever it is. You don't have to struggle for an adjective. You can just say feeling. You just notice. And then moving up to the shins or the calves, the lower part of the leg. Just noticing what's there. Just label it. This is feeling. This is tingling. Then slowly going up the body, and then down the body. Again, no judgment, no evaluation, no needing for this feeling to be anything other than a feeling. You don't have to judge the feeling, just notice what it is. So for the next few moments, we'll do this body scan. If you come to a part of the body that has a lot of discomfort, you can try to breathe kind of openness into that part of the body. And if that doesn't work, you can just move on to the next part of the body. That's okay. And now each one of these sensations that we have has what we call a feeling tone. A feeling tone of pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. By paying attention a little more and kind of focusing our awareness, we can bring mindfulness to our craving for pleasure and our resistance to pain. If there is pleasure, just say, this is pleasant. If something's unpleasant, you just say, this is unpleasant. And if something is neither, just say, this is neutral. Neither pleasant nor unpleasant. So you might say, exhaling, pleasant. Knee pain, unpleasant. Top of my head, neutral. Again, we're not resisting or attached to what's there. We're just still noticing, but refining our labeling by saying pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. So many of these feelings bring up a lot of thoughts. And sometimes just a lot of thoughts come anyway, thoughts of the past and the future filling the mind, thoughts about these feelings, this pleasure, this displeasure. So we work with these thoughts too, and we try to see the truth of these thoughts. And a feeling is just a feeling. A thought is just a thought. We're under no obligation to attach to any of these thoughts. These thoughts are impermanent and they are impersonal. And you can just think of these thoughts as like clouds in the sky. So the cloud starts at the one end of the sky, and it just goes to the other end of the sky till it disappears, to be replaced by a new cloud or a new thought. You might be unhappy or angry. Those thoughts don't last. Or happy, joyful, those thoughts don't last. So our aim is to not attach to these thoughts, to see the truth of these thoughts, the impermanent nature of these thoughts, how attaching to these thoughts just cause a lot of suffering. So now just for the next few moments, we can just watch the arising and passing of thoughts. So that's a lot of mindfulness that we've been practicing over the last few moments. Now we can shift our focus to one of gratitude, loving kindness even. And in this practice of loving kindness, you can just imagine a beam of loving kindness going from your heart to its intended target, either to all beings in all directions, or to a particular group of people who could maybe use some thoughts of goodwill. Who that is completely up to you. But if you just want to do all beings in all directions, and your beam is just like going in all directions out of your body, you can do that. May all beings be free from suffering. May all beings be at peace. May all beings be healthy, free from danger. So we'll end our practice with this loving kindness, this friendliness, goodwill, wish to be happy. So just open your eyes when you're ready. And just take the next about 60 seconds out in silence as you stretch your arms and you stretch your legs and you keep that mindfulness about you, hopefully. Ask yourself if you have a question now, and you can type it into the chat box. We'll go over it. Just a stretch. Okay, so that was the kind of a basic mindfulness kind of meditation that we did. Focusing on the body, mindfulness of the body, mindfulness of these feelings that come up, these sensations that come up, and firstly, just noticing that they're there, and secondly, labeling them in a way that's not attaching to them, whether it's pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. You know, there's a lot more to this mindfulness meditation than that, but this is a really good start. This is a really good practice in not attaching. I had a lot of knee pain, which, as I get older, I have a lot more of these days. It's, just noticing that the knee pain is there and labeling it, this is knee pain. And then being a bit more refined and saying, this is unpleasant, because it was unpleasant. And after a while, the knee pain didn't go away. So I guess I could have just stayed with it, but, that's only so useful. After a while, you don't want to be masochist about this. It's okay just to move slightly, and so I moved slightly. My foot just went forward slightly, just a few inches, if that. And that relieved the knee pain. And then I can just do the rest of the meditation, do the rest of my body scan, or those types of things. So I would love to know what your experience of this meditation is. If you have any questions on the instructions or anything that you were kind of going through during the meditation, any other questions? Travis, did anyone at the beginning, was anybody new? Or say hello?
I don't believe anyone was new, but Daniel said hello.
Hi!
And so did Dave and Cynthia and Roberto.
Hi, Dave and Cynthia and Roberto and Daniel. Hi. It's good to see you. Good to have you here. It helps so much when you engage. This is such an impersonal process for such a personal practice. So just knowing that people are just there and just at least saying hello and acknowledging your existence, that's helpful for me, most definitely.
So Daniel asked, the idea of anger being harmful has been very helpful in my life.
Mm-hmm.
However, how do wrathful deities play into this, since they seem to be helpful?
So you're not speaking of something that I know a lot about. So when you talk about wrathful deities, you're talking about Tibetan Buddhism, and the wrathful deities. What they do is they are they're enlightened beings. They just take on this kind of wrathful look, and they cut the ignorance that's underlying in this anger. They're very aggressive in cutting the ignorance, right? So, I mean, probably that's all I can tell you because I don't know too much about it. But a lot, it's interesting you brought that up, though. And for everybody else, this is a wonderful practice in really understanding what Buddhism is trying to tell us. When these feelings of anger appear, how does it feel? And when you come back to the breath and you're able to let go of this anger, even if it's just for a little bit, how does that feel? And so you can prove to yourself that letting go is better. And if you have this recollection in mind, and you can even at the time just picture these wrathful deities cutting that connection. That would be helpful. That'd be helpful too if you want to do that. Because oftentimes they have a sword with them, don't they? Cutting that connection. And you can see how much better this feels. Oh, I'm not attached to this anger. But you can kind of rest until your mind gets attached to something else, which will usually happen pretty quickly. But over time, the more you get used to this, the more you get, whenever anger appears, some other kind of attachment appears, the more you can let that go, the easier it gets. So it might be hard at first, but it gets easier over time. It's like, oh, angry, let it go, let it go. What happened was during the last part of this meditation, when I just said, imagine like a beam of loving kindness emanating from your body to its intended target. It was really interesting that just a few seconds after I said that, and we're kind of all back in the meditation again, I had these really strong feelings of attachment, anger, disappointment, and it's really hard to, I don't try to get too into it, like the content of it, because that's not terribly useful. But it was interesting that now that I allowed myself this loving kindness, that these kind of darker, denser feelings just kind of entered. And here they come, and I was able to, let that go and smile. And then I was fine, but it's interesting how that happens, and I'm interested in if that ever happens to you.
Cynthia asked, it feels like non-compassion to distance from a friend who seems to need kindness and compassion, but being around her feels like helping her is harming me. How do I reconcile that?
So, and the first off, and this concept is very foreign to us. Westerners, and that is the concept of we need to take care of ourselves first. we need to be able to put ourselves in a position of, I guess, strength. I'll just use that word, strength. Right? We need to build up our own loving kindness for ourselves and our compassion for ourselves. We need to understand what these feelings feel like. We need to have that experience of those feelings in our heart. We need to make sure that our heart gets bigger so that we can then tend to the needs of others. You know, if you're trying to be there for somebody else and it's just harmful for you, they're probably engaging in actions or behaviors or ways of being that are not terribly skillful. And a lot of people who are going through a hard time, this is what they do, and that's the tools they have to get people to help them. This is like this passive aggressive way. Instead of just saying, I need help because I'm not feeling good, they engage in this conditioning that they've learned over years and years and years, that probably started in childhood, that was reinforced in their teen years and early adult years. And so that was just, and that behavior just keeps on going strong and well into their adulthood. Ways of trying to like attention seek or ask for help in this kind of unskillful ways. And it's hard to, because we want to help, but we don't want to be, but giving that person help harms us, because the way in which they're going about it is just really just not helpful. And I say this a lot in my loving kindness class, you've got to take care of yourself first. It is not selfish, the unskillful kind of selfish, to stay away and to not engage with that behavior. Because engaging with that behavior just says that, okay, to this other person, it just says, okay, this behavior works, so I'm just going to keep doing it. You have to say, no, I'm not going to engage when you're doing this behavior, or when you're kind of engaging with this. In this way, I should say. And it's really hard because you're conditioned too. You're programmed to respond to that. Because a lot of people who are really compassionate, empathetic, they have this like compassion fatigue. And this compassion fatigue is just kind of unskillful compassion and unskillful empathy, responding to everybody without dealing with your own needs first. You need to fill your own cup first, as they say. And so I know it's really hard when somebody is suffering and needs help, but is going about it in this really kind of unhelpful way that just causes you pain. So until you're able to respond in a way that's healthy for you, it's perfectly okay to stay away. And that's what we call the skillful kind of selfish. That's the kind of selfish that you want. Because you're not causing harm to yourself. So I hope that helped. And you'll probably get us. Go ahead. Did you have something?
She was saying thank you.
Oh, okay. Welcome. And so you'll probably see a lot of this because we're locked down again. Now, the good thing about being locked down again is because there isn't this big giant assault on toilet paper and paper towels. I mean, there is a little bit, but I mean, you can still get them, I think, at Costco or wherever. there's still a lot of that going on, but not as much as before. Because they're like, okay, lockdown, we've seen this before, we know what it's all about. They're not going to run out of toilet paper and paper towels, so I don't have to just kind of hoard these. And this hoarding is really interesting. It's a lot of self-preservation. It's a lot of sense making. For a lot of these people, this virus and our reaction to it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It seems like something more sinister is going on. It's not, it's just a virus. So out of a sense of self-preservation, out of a sense of just kind of sense-making, we do these things like hoarding. I heard one person on this one Facebook group said, I'll pay $5 for a roll of toilet paper. I felt really bad for this person. But we don't have to deal with that anymore, thank goodness. Pretty much everything is in stock. And it's just, we have to bear down. And, I do the loving kindness class on Wednesday, so tomorrow, and I know Jeff talks a lot about it. I talk a lot about it too. Talking about wearing a mask and social distancing, where no one's trying to take away your liberty or your freedom or trying to get you to give a damn about other human beings besides yourself. By wearing a mask, by socially distancing, by doing your part. And I also talked a lot about when you see these people on social media, because I know you spend a lot of time on social media. I spend a lot of time on social media. When you see a lot of people, spending a lot of time on social media saying that, masks aren't necessary and blah, 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 and everything is a hoax and all this kind of nonsense that is not true. And even your friends, you're kind of regurgitating this kind of nonsense. It's okay just to use the unfriend button. I did it today. This coworker of mine was talking about my liberty and blah, blah, blah. It's like, oh, shut up. Unfriend. And I felt perfectly fine with it. I felt perfectly fine with it just because and that's not going to be in my timeline anymore. I'm not going to see that anymore. And I don't feel bad about it because I'm taking care of myself just by not, kind of subjecting myself to that kind of stuff. And that's a whole other discussion on conspiracy theories. Oh, good Lord. I could do a class on that. And why people believe them and why people believe this is a hoax when it's not. But anyway, I kind of digress. Wear a mask, please. Show that you care for other human beings. So we do have time for probably one or two more questions or comments about what that meditation was like for you. Or you can just say hi, it's okay.
Corey said hi. Miss you guys in the temple.
Hi, Corey. Miss you too. Well, we can end here. That's okay. I don't want to put pressure on you to ask a question that you don't have. It was wonderful to be here with you today. I loved it. So again, I love you all. Wear a mask. Show that you care for others. And be good to yourself. Let's join our palms together at our hearts, please. And may the benefits of this meditation, this discussion, be received by all beings. May all beings be free from suffering. May all beings be at peace. May all beings be joyful and at ease. May all beings be happy. May all beings be loved and seen for the beautiful, radiant beings that you are. We can do this, guys. I love you all. Bye.